sure to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's February 2nd here in Seoul. I'm Sunyoon, and this is Arirang's new daily morning program, News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Chiji.
Good morning, Yoon.
Good morning. And Walter Lee.
Always happy to be here.
And congratulations, Walter.
Yes, and even happier now that I'm a father. So
He's a father.
I am. So very, very happy. Thank you for congratulating me.
Yeah, father of a beautiful baby daughter. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now, every day we do make a news feed for the new generation. We're looking at the top trending hashtags on social media over the past 24 hours. Here they are. The first hashtag is taxi fare. Starting Wednesday, the basic taxi fare in Seoul rose by 1,000 won, which is around 80 cents, bringing it to 4,800 won, which is roughly $4. The measure came amid piling complaints about a shortage of cabs in the city due to COVID-19. The second hashtag is Mr. Beast, also dubbed the king of YouTube, with some 131 million subscribers. The content creator recently uploaded a video titled 1,000 Blind People See for the First Time. Just like the title suggests, he helped hundreds recover their vision through a 10-minute eye surgery. The last hashtag is Netflix. Netflix last year announced that it will prevent users from sharing their account passwords with others. That's mainly because they lost more than 200,000 subscribers in the previous quarter. In a new fact section on its website on Tuesday, Netflix specified how it will stop users from sharing their account passwords, and the streaming giant said that people living at another residence will have to use their own account. Netflix also said it will use info like one's IP address and device ID to cross-check who's actually using which account. Now let's delve deeper into the last hashtag, which is Netflix. Netflix had found more than 100 million users who didn't pay for a subscription but still used its services. Since last summer, Netflix has been testing charging for password sharing in 5 different Latin American countries. And now it's decided to restrict account sharing, as mentioned, by tracking users' IP addresses, device IDs, and account activity, and see if it's connected to the purchaser's primary location. Now, this leaves a lot of questions. Some asked what they would do if they're watching Netflix content outside of their primary location, and Netflix quickly answered saying that you can request a temporary access code. And whether this would help Netflix gain more subscribers is another question. According to the Korea Information Society Development Institute, only 42% of Netflix users are using their own account in Korea, and the institute also predicts that a big portion of users will drop their subscriptions if they're required to pay more to share their accounts. And I was so curious as to whether this measure would take effect in Korea, so I called an employee from Netflix to get some answers, and here's what they had to say. So Netflix said it aims to expand paid subscriptions based on relatively sluggish profits earned during the fourth quarter of last year. As stated, this measure will be extended throughout the first quarter of 2023. Now, bringing this discussion here to the studio, Walter, are you a Netflix user and did you subscribe yourself?
I am a Netflix user, and I'm one of those cool friends that lets you, who shares their account with their friends and family. So it looks like I'll be paying a little extra in the coming months. But listen, at the end of the day, I completely get it. It's a business first rather than this whole free sharing service. So though I may not like paying the extra money, I get it. It's business.
It does seem you are a bit irked by this.
Of course, I have to pay extra money.
But you do understand.
I do understand, though.
And Sihi, Netflix has long been the giant of the OTT platform industry. As the forerunner, do you think this will be a blueprint, or do you think this will give other platforms the opportunity to attract more subscribers?
I think it could definitely provide an opportunity for other platforms to garner more subscribers, because people will turn to other platforms to see if they can find better conditions or offers. However, the other OTT platforms, they will have to have very smart strategies in order to garner these subscribers, because if they have like the same policy change where they don't allow account sharing, and if they don't have a lot of content, then they won't garner enough people, because they're very loyal to Netflix already, although they're irked and irritated by this change in policy, they may still choose to stay on this platform.
Right, so we'll have to see what happens. And that was our newsfeed for this Thursday. Moving on, NewsGen discusses different topics each day. And speaking of streaming platforms and OTT content, we have a very closely related discussion topic for today. Please take a look at the screen. Reality dating shows. They're definitely the latest craze among a lot of young people in Korea. The hit show Singles Inferno entered Netflix's top 10 global TV shows list soon after its release last year. It became the first ever Korean reality show to do so. Today, NewsGen looks at 3 questions. 1. How did reality dating shows become the latest craze in Korea? 2. How are Korean dating shows different from those abroad? What are their distinctive traits? 3. Do reality dating shows affect dating culture here? As we saw in today's video, reality dating shows are the latest craze among the new generation in Korea. I would like to ask you guys, did you guys ever watch them before?
Oh, I did. I'm a big fan of I'm Solo. And I watched Divorced Singles. I watched the first seasons of Exchange, Heart Signal, Love Catcher, Change Days.
Wow.
So the list ends there.
Oh,
the list
okay.
ends there,
I was wondering when the list would go on.
Yes. I watched a lot of these shows. I mean, dating is always a topic of interest, but then it was never before have they been so much trending like this, and
Right.
especially because they have non-celebrities being featured on these programs, which is why people are able to relate to the programs more. And they cover stories of common people like us, and people find the fun from placing themselves in the shoes of these participants,
Right.
and really indirectly experiencing what the participants are going through these programs.
And what about you, Walter?
Well, unlike Jihee, I completely have no interest in these programs. I think the last program I watched was maybe The Bachelor, and that was maybe 15 or 20 years ago.
Wow.
So for me, I did check out I'm Solo episode, and I have to say that I wasn't interested. I turned it off after 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, so it's quite interesting. Someone's a very big fan. Well, it's not your cup of tea.
Not at
And
all.
speaking of being a big fan, T, of these reality shows, what do you think is with the situation where a lot of the younger people aren't dating as much or aren't even getting married,
Right.
but they're still watching so many of these shows?
So there is a huge contrast between the shows and the reality. Well, today many refer to young Koreans as the 삼포 generation, literally meaning they give up on 3 things, which is dating, marriage, and children. But Walter, you got all 3 of them.
I am
You're
very
a
lucky.
younger generation, yes. And many youngsters in the country, because of the harsh economic conditions and different societal problems, they just think dating is a luxury, and they
Right.
don't find the time, the energy, the money to spend on dating. And so instead, the younger generation is choosing or are already living vicariously through these dating reality shows. And now if we can take a look at the screen, we see a survey which was conducted last year over some 1,000 adults in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And more than half of the respondents said that they experienced vicarious satisfaction through dating reality shows. And even according to a psychology professor, the public interest in dating and sexuality hasn't diminished fundamentally, but people are indirectly experiencing dating through watching these shows. And they really provide satisfaction supplement to the harsh reality.
Right. And Walter, I would like to ask you, you said the last time you watched these shows was back in The Bachelor, the program, right?
Yeah.
And I want to ask, do you think there's any differences from the shows that you've watched then and those that are trending now?
Right, so comparing obviously what I did watch all the way back, I mean, I'm 35, this is like 15, to almost 20 years ago now, right? So comparing what we have now and to then, I think it's the presence of social media. I really think these days, the contestants, they want to raise their social status. They're able to do that now. So a lot of them have their Instagram or some sort of connection relating back to what they're doing, or they might be a business person, etc. Back then, there was no social media, so I think most of the contestants actually wanted to find love at that point, whereas people these days, just by my guess, they're more looking just to be a bit popular or more famous.
Right.
Although, you know, some do want to look for love and some, it is relatable, but yes, I think those are the main differences I see as a viewer.
I see.
And I think, like you said, the younger generation are able to relate to these programs more these days because they feature non-celebrities. They're like common people. They're like friends, you know, so they're a lot more relatable, which is why the younger generation like these shows even more.
Right, so there's definitely a pro and con to using these influencers and non-celebrities. Now, Tihi, what do you think makes it so compelling for the extent that you're binge watching them and watching a very long list of these programs?
Right, right. So other than the fact that they're more relatable because they feature non-celebrities, they provide indirect experience. I mean, for example, one of my favorite dating shows, I'm Solo, it doesn't seem scripted, at least that's what they say. And the participants there, they all seem very natural, down to earth. They're very expressive with their emotions, and you get to see and indirectly experience what's going on there. But yet you don't have to bear that burden yourself, and you're learning indirectly and really lowering your chances of failure by looking at their mistakes and learning from them. So I think that's partly why this is fun among the younger generation, including myself.
It's like a simulation for you.
It is.
All right, now let's hear from a TV producer who's worked on several reality TV shows himself. As we mentioned, we're now going to hear from a professional in this industry. We have with us on Skype a TV producer from New York City. It's Matt Graham.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Matt. Great to have you here. Now, we hear that you've produced reality shows yourself. And why do you think people are so attracted to them, especially reality dating shows?
In my experience, I feel like reality shows tend to focus on groups of people who kind of exist, or lifestyles that are outside of the norm. For instance, in the Kardashians, they have this super ultra luxurious lifestyle that seems kind of unobtainable to the common person, to any of us really. And so people tune in to kind of see what they don't know. It's the same reason why there's so many shows about like weird jobs or like insular religious communities. It's people love to kind of explore these sub-communities that they don't know much about. Dating shows in particular, I think people love to tune in for two main reasons. One, people love drama, and people who are on dating shows, you know, people who are competing for love or are in love tend to do a lot of stupid or dramatic things that they wouldn't necessarily do were they not in that position. And so you get a ton of drama, and it usually is a whole train wreck of emotions. But also the second reason I think is that everyone really does love to see genuine romance and genuine connections. And so especially as you were saying with real people now coming on reality shows, you know, there are the reoccurring characters you tune in to root for and to see how the relationship's developing. And so people really are beginning to identify with the contestants themselves.
Right, especially because they can relate to them. Now, any questions you two might want to ask yourself?
Right. So though they're supposed to be reality dating shows, how real are they? And what are some tricks producers use to build chemistry among the people on these shows?
I would say it's a blend of reality. There's always editing. You know, you don't know exactly what happened. There's the magic of post. But then again, producers, I would say that they prod things. They hear things that the characters and the cast members themselves might not hear, and so they can kind of prod them unwittingly into situations. They're always working behind the scenes. I honestly haven't worked on too many dating shows, so I'm sure they have a whole ton of tricks that I'm unfamiliar with. But you know, there are always things that producers can kind of do to play behind the scenes.
And you've actually talked about why you think these dating shows are so popular, but I'm sort of curious as to know what maybe you think is different from, let's say, an American dating show to a Korean dating show, because I've actually heard you've been watching a lot of Korean dating shows recently.
Yeah. So Singles Inferno is definitely a guilty pleasure of my fiance and I have like binge watched both seasons. Super excited for the third. I could practically hear the theme song when you like had the clip going earlier. But it's I will say the major difference that I've noticed right off the top is the pacing. American shows, you know, I don't think people are quite as reserved. So you could blink once in the first episode, and who knows what you missed? You know, they could be kissing, hugging. The people are getting intimate. Korean shows, like by the very end of the final episode of the season, you know, a couple might hold hands on the way out. But like, you know, but that doesn't that makes every kind of interaction so much more important. So even so, less things may be happening on screen, like makes every sort of like eye contact like so much more dramatic. So it's equally dramatic, even though like physically certain things are less, but also structurally, I think I've noticed as a producer, like for Singles Inferno, they have the hosts play a very powerful part of the show that I haven't really seen emulated in American shows. They kind of almost act as the audience themselves, and they ask questions that the audience themselves are feeling. I know that they're being fed things by producers to bring attention to key moments or like things that may have been missed if you hadn't taken that second to pause and kind of point it out and highlight it. So that's really it's an interesting mechanic that I wasn't sold on in the first season, and I thought it was really cool in the second season. So I'm still on the fence about it.
Right, but it hooked you in eventually, given that you binge watched it.
Yeah. I think there's definitely something to it.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Matt. That was Matt Graham, a producer from the United States.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Now, if we bring this discussion back here to the studio, any points that fascinated you?
Well, he mentioned how people want genuine romance, right? I totally agree. And he also said people like watching drama. And these reality shows, they're a condensed form of all the dramas that go within, happen within these participants, right? That's why they are very entertaining for the younger generation, I believe.
What about you, Walter?
Well, I think as well that he mentioned that the hosts actually play a huge part in those shows, which doesn't really happen overseas. I also wasn't really on the bandwagon when it comes to that sort of style. It is a very Korean, I guess we say variety show style though here. I like it now, but I can see why maybe some foreign audiences might find it a bit distracting.
Yeah, and it's quite funny when he said we're much more reserved compared to content abroad.
Cultural difference.
But we're both very dramatic.
Yes.
Right.
And I think that's a key element to all reality programs. All right, that was our Skype interview. And given that we are a live morning program, we always ask our viewers questions related to our discussion topic in advance, and we use this time to share with you what they had to say. So we asked our viewers whether they watch these reality dating shows, and Alexandra Carrico said never. Most reality shows are subtly but obviously fake, so she would rather much prefer dramas. Leon Tio said, I love the fact that we can feel involved by guessing the pairings and have couples that we ship. And Tyrus Bell said he watches We Got Married episodes online even till this day. Now, what do you guys think about these comments, starting with Walter?
Well, I find it interesting that Alexandra Carrico said that these reality shows are obviously fake, but then that person enjoys dramas, which are also fake. So I'm trying to figure out, which one you like more.
Very critical thinking right there. What about you, Ji?
Well, I totally agree with Leon, how he said he feels involved by guessing the pairings. Because I think it's really fun to guess who ends up with who. And people always like that game component within a program, right? And also, Tyrus Bell mentioned he's still watching We Got Married episodes. What's different with those, like the dating shows in the past and those trending these days, is that these days they feature non-celebrities, whereas with We Got Married, they had celebrities paired up, and they showed them living together, right?
And as Matt mentioned in our Skype interview, it comes to the thing that all people love to look at genuine love, right? It's really fun to look at, and you can relate to it, especially when they're non-celebrities.
Exactly.
All right, every day we do upload questions related to our discussion topic for our viewers to answer. If you want to participate, please search Arirang News on YouTube and look into our community tab. The link is right below. Now, we've already come to the final part of our discussion, and I would like to ask you, Chihi, there seems to be so many types of reality shows here in Korea and abroad, but what are some tips or pitches you would like to give producers here in Korea when it comes to dating shows?
Well, what I want to see on Korean TV is perhaps a Korean version of Love is Blind. So if you see the original program, the participants there, they can talk to each other, but only through a speaker phone, but not see each other. It's like in a speed dating format, and later they can choose to date each other for a longer period of time, but also through speakers only, so they don't get to see each other. The only time they can face each other is when one makes a date proposal, and that date proposal is accepted by the other person. So I think it'll be interesting to see a Korean version of this
Love
program
is
on
Blind.
TV. Yes.
And I hope our producers out there really listen to Chihi because she's a great fan of all the things that you're producing. And Walter, there are some things that we should still keep in mind. For instance, myself, I wouldn't like to see dating programs that cross a line just for the sake of ratings or are way too provocative. What do you think should be considered?
Well, I think it's what we give out to our younger audience. Now, I think that we know it's heavily edited. It's a reality TV show. I know that they're trying to get the reality aspect involved. However, it's usually heavily edited to make certain situations look, I guess, more dramatic for the viewers, I guess, concern or their needs or wants. But this also needs to translate down to the younger generation, like people younger than us, that, you know, it's entertainment first and reality last, so they shouldn't take these situations too seriously.
Right, don't take it too seriously. It's okay if you're invested into it and you find it a guilty pleasure, but don't take it to stone, right?
Exactly.
All right, today we talked about why reality dating programs have become the latest craze in Korea, especially among the younger generation. And we'll be here every day from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you the topics that young people are talking about. Joining me in the studio was Choi Ji-hee.
Thank you always.
And Walter Lee.
Always lovely to be here.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll all see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.